What problems are troubling you? What's frustrating you, bothering you, worrying you? Want solutions? Want answers? Welcome to Here We Come to Save the Day, hosted by David Adelson. This podcast is dedicated to solving everyday and global problems in an uplifting, fun, enjoyable way. There is a solution to whatever's troubling you. Ask your questions and we'll do our best to give you practical, useful, workable solutions you can use starting today. Join us now with David's special guest experts who will share their own experiences, life lessons, and practical strategies for creating the life you long for. Start living your best life today, right now, with David Adelson and friends.
Hi, welcome to another fun episode of Here We Come to Save the Day. Today is a problem that I personally have experienced and learned to overcome, but I had to get a master's degree to do it. We're going to save you a lot of years and expenses and tell you how to overcome writer's block and how to get started if you think you have something in you that you need to bring out. Today I'm with Michele PW. I'm going to let her say her name because I'm not good at that. She's going to tell you what we're going to talk about. So hi, Michele, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah. Hi, it's so nice. Thank you so much for having me. So it's Michele Pariza Wacek, which is difficult to say and difficult to spell, which is why I do it myself. And we are going to talk about writer's block and also how to get started. And we'll get into this more in the bio, but just for context, I've written and published 5 novels, psychological thrillers, 5 nonfiction books, business books. I've got a copywriting company, so we write copy. That's writing copy, writing promotion materials for people's businesses. Plus, I help people with their books. So, and I've written about 5 million blog posts, I think, over the last few years. So I, and plus I'm the fiction category director for Podcast Magazine. So I do more than a little bit of writing. So I've got a few things to share around this.
So, well, you just kind of did your bio. And so what can people expect when they listen to this podcast? What will they get out of it by the end?
So my hope is that you, feel inspired and not guilty over not starting. Because I do think that the beating, and it's real easy to do, but I do think that the cycle we get into where we are beating ourselves up is bad. And so really, actually what I really would like is by the end is you to also be clear is if either you are ready to move forward or you're ready to say, no, I'm done. Because sitting in this space of, yes, I got something to write, but I never have time to write it. Living in that gray area for too long, and I know many of you have probably lived in that gray area for years, is just not healthy. So you need to step out of that gray area and either step into, yes, I'm committed to writing whatever it is I'm supposed to be write, or no, that was just a dream, and I'm putting that to bed and putting all that energy that was keeping me in the gray space towards something that's more productive and something that I want to do more with my life.
Now, thank you. That sounds really good. Now, are you also going to cover, because I thought, and by the way, I want to bring, I learned some very specific, what were called pre-writing techniques, but that's after you've already gotten through what you just talked about. So this is exciting to me to hear what you want to say, because I totally know where you're coming from with this. I know so many people who do that.
Yes.
I want to tell people a little bit more about you, because you talked about, a lot of your writing. What you didn't talk about is that you've written, or maybe you did, but I want to reiterate it, that you're a best-selling award-winning fiction and nonfiction author. You mentioned your psychological thrillers and mystery suspense book and your blog. On the nonfiction side, Michele has written 5 books in the Love-Based Business series. And this, again, is something that I'm intrigued and excited about, that share how to sell more with love and build a solid, profitable business on a foundation of love. In addition, your copywriting and marketing company has sold nearly $50 million worth of products and services. And that's very exciting. So while I know what we're doing here, I could also see that we'd want to, how did you get $50 million worth of client? How did you do all that? But we're not going to cover that today, but maybe some future time. So let's start with this idea of somebody's been churning around in their mind that they're supposed to write, or they have an idea of something that they'd like to write or get it out. Why don't you talk about that and tell us if your story is part of it, or how you've worked with people and how you get them to get to that yay or nay decision?
Yeah, so I like to start here because I think this is key to a lot of writing blocks. I mean, some of it, because quite honestly, if there's something that you need to write, like if you need to write an email because you're an entrepreneur, you have to get an email out that day, or you have to get a letter or a blog post. If you have an external deadline, chances are you're going to power through whatever writing block you've got, because you've got no choice, or you're going to have to have a hard conversation with your boss or with your client or whatever. So really, where I think where most writer's block lies is in that I want to write a book, or I want to write a memoir, or I want to write this, or I want to start a business and write blogs on a regular basis for my like some people want to write a regular content for their list as an entrepreneur, and they never get around to it. I'm talking really about, because I think that's the true writer's block, is when you have a project that is important but not urgent, and you are not getting it done. That is the writer's. That's what I think is really true writer's block. So that's where I talk about kind of living in the gray area, because the thing is that it is important and not urgent. So that's the problem. When something is urgent, then all bets are off, and you tend to push through. Even if what you produce isn't great, it's at least done. But if you are not pushing through, then if it's not urgent, then you have no external motivation that's pushing you through. You have to rely on your internal motivation. And if that's not, I don't want to say strong enough. I was going to say strong enough, but that's not exactly the right word. If that's not pushing you for whatever reason, then we got to take a look at that. Because if that's not pushing you to do it, the internal motivations, that's where hell is. That's where you're sitting in this gray area of, yes, I've got all these ideas that want to be expressed through words, and yet I never can find the time to sit down and write. Or even if I do have the time to sit down and write, I just stare at a blank screen and nothing comes out. And then, I gotta, I end up on Facebook, or the laundry's calling me, or whatever you use to distract yourself. And I know this because I did this. So yes, you're right. Oh, I'll let you go. But yes, this is part of my story too, because I actually procrastinate quite a bit.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I just want to bring out is this idea of priority. I love that you're bringing about the idea that the lack of urgency, because I know that I've gone for over a year without sending out an email to my podcast, not my podcast, but to my list. Because, and not that I wasn't working a lot, but of all the things that needed to get done, somehow that, I don't know whether I want to say it slipped in the cracks or whatever,
Right.
whatever, it just didn't get done. So maybe we should address this idea of how does, what's the outcome that you want? How do you move it from what you were describing, it not being urgent? How do you move it into manifestation? What tricks do you have for us?
Yes. So the first thing is to, so when things are important and not urgent, we have to figure out a way to motivate. We don't have the external urgent deadline, because usually these are external, but not always, but a lot of times. So we don't have that urgent deadline to push us, regardless. So I guess maybe I should just say it like that. We don't have, but it's important and not urgent. There's no urgency to push us. So then how do we push ourselves? Well, because we have made a commitment to ourselves and to the work that we are going to get it out. when something is urgent, whether or not it's important and urgent or not important and urgent, and I'm talking about, obviously, I don't know, I should say that too, that Stephen Covey's his little chart where, things fall into important and urgent, not important, not urgent, and important and not urgent. And most of the things we do fall in the not important but urgent category. That's every time you get a text message or an email, ping or something, that's where you're responding to somebody else's urgencies. So when you have that urgent, though, when something is urgent, the urgency is driving driving your action. When it's not urgent, that's what you have to look at, because then you don't have the urgency driving driving you to take action. So now you got to look at, what can you use to take action? Well, in that case, what you need to look at is commitment. So in the case of, like what I was saying, like with, writing an email regularly to your list, and I want to be really clear that there's no right or wrong answer. So that's part of the reason why I just want you to step out of the gray and step firmly on one side or the other. Because don't, living your life saying, well, I really should be emailing my list regularly and I'm not, is way too much wasted energy spinning around in a circle. Or, yeah, I want to be writing a book and I'm not. Or, yes, someday I will be writing a book and I'm not. I've met retired people who claim they want to be writing a book, and they're retired and they can still not find time to write their book. This is a big problem. So to me, if you are retired and you cannot find time to write your book, that probably means, it's probably a good sign that you're not supposed to be writing a book for whatever reason. It's just not in the cards. But so letting that dream go is probably the best thing you can do for yourself. So
I want to add something here that's very interesting, because I think you're right on this, Michele. I think that there are a lot of people who feel that they've had a lot of life experiences, or they've learned a lot of things that they feel would be valuable to pass on, and they feel guilty for not passing it on. But I agree that in a lot of cases it's not necessary. So I had a client once, this couple that had developed a number of products, and they had ideas for other products and they were not sure what ones to pursue, and they were looking for guidance with the connections that I have with Divine Mother to help that. And the information that came to them, and I think this is appropriate for a lot of people, is they have more stuff in their head. And this was not very old couple. I mean, I want to say in their 40s at the time. And what they were told is they have more stuff in their head between the two of them. They were both brilliant, both PhDs, than they possibly could have time to get out during the rest of their lifetime. It's just, they're not going to get everything out. Right. So just go for what you like, pick and choose the ones that nourish you, that bring you joy, bring you happiness, and don't worry about the rest. Just don't worry about it. And I think this idea of, you don't have to write a book, maybe you pass it on, allow that somehow what you've learned is now part of the collective consciousness, whether you're here or not. I think that idea of just letting it go can be, and get out of that gray area, is a huge relief, because that's not a regret that you want to be carrying around day after day after day after day.
Exactly. Because if you're never going to write your book, then the last thing you want is on your deathbed to be thinking about the book that you were never meant to write anyways. I mean, why do you want to waste another second of this precious life putting energy into something that really isn't meant to be? And that's everything, including, like I said, so like if it's something like you feel like is more of a should, that's the other thing. So we end up with the shoulds, and the shoulds is what I would probably call emailing your list regularly. I'm guessing that's why that's on your list, is because you feel like it's a should. And as a marketer, I will say that emailing your list regularly is a good thing. So this is not about trying to talk you or trying to say it's not a good thing, because it is. That said, though, if this is, again, if there's so much energy being placed on something that just isn't getting done, then I think it's worth it to look at the activity that's not getting done. Would it be cost effective to hire it out? Can we create a template? Like if somehow, so at least some of the communication is easier to get out on a faster way. Or do we need to make a commitment to ourselves? I mean, maybe this is the other thing to look at. I was coaching somebody. I do have a small writer accountability group, and I was coaching somebody, and what I said was, is sometimes, the smaller thing is, it's like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. I can't remember who said that, but if you've got something in your business that you feel like you need to be getting done, and like writing a regular email to your list is a good thing to do. And if it's not getting done for whatever reason, this is not judgment here. We need to look harder at why it's not getting done. And so, like I said, it could be we need to hire it out. It could be that this is a symptom of a larger problem, that by perhaps emailing your list, if you email your list, you could get more business and you could grow, which we all think on the surface might be a good thing, but maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe you've got some internal, I'm not saying you, by the way, so just don't take this personally.
I'm not.
I just suddenly realized I'm going off on this direction.
No. I'm totally I'm not feeling attacked in any way. But
oh, good.
No, because I know I'm not the only one. So.
Right. So so maybe there is something there. There's just, and it could be just a little tiny piece, a little tiny worry that if you get too big, maybe you're going to have to sacrifice your personal life, and it may not even be logical. That's the other thing too. A lot of these fears actually are not logical, and if you were actually to say it, that would release the tension. It's because we don't say it is why it's got so much hold over us. Or maybe you're afraid that if you get more business, you're not going to have time for your kids, or you have to sacrifice something. So there's probably, I would think that there's whatever the writing represents. So kind of get underneath it and see, what does the writing represent? Why do whatever regular writing is, whether it's writing an email, writing a blog post, writing your book, what is the reason, what does that represent to you? And then get underneath that and see what's the deeper issue behind why you're not doing it. And what you might find is that once you can clear that up, or you might find that this is a symptom of a larger problem, like, okay, you're not doing your email, but then you're also not doing a lot of other marketing to your list, or you're not following up, or you're not doing this, and all of a sudden you realize that there's a lot of open places where money is leaking out of your business because of some of these issues. The email writing is just one thing. So you don't have writer's block. I can't believe you don't really have a writer's block problem. You have another problem. So writer's block is how it's manifesting, but it almost never is the problem. Because like I said, if you have that external deadline, I mean, think about it. If there is something that you have to get out, and you have to get it out because you've got, there is, like, if you don't want to face the consequences of not getting out. I mean, we all have a choice, but you do not want to face those consequences of not getting out. Like, you don't want to face your boss. You don't want to maybe lose your job or lose a big client. If you've got something like that staring in your face, you get it done. The writer's block only appears on things where you don't have something like that staring in your face. Because the thing is that if you do have something staring in your face and you're still not getting it done, you find another way. Like if there's another reason why you're not writing, like you need more research, or you have some questions, or you're confused about the assignment, you get those answers because you have to power through. If you're just sitting there staring at a blank sheet and really not moving forward at all, not looking for answers, not researching, not doing anything, that's writer's block is not your problem. Something else is your problem. And I would say the first place to look is, what does this writing mean to you? What does it represent? And then go under that.
Good. I love that. So just to recap, if you're not writing when you could be writing, or you're feeling zero urgency to be writing and just feeling that you should, it sounds to me, and to help you, I'm trying to clarify, that the first thing to do is to determine whether or not is that a should that's imposed on you, or is that a should that's coming from you? Is it realistic? What if you don't do it? What, those kinds of things. What's the effect if I don't do it? What if I just let it go? On the other hand, there's those people who it is a good idea to do it, but they're still not doing it. And then the first thing that they should do is start exploring what is it that's holding them back. Do you have some particular process for them to determine what might be holding them back? Do you have like a Q&A thing or something that can lead them to where that is?
That's a great question, because I wrote a book called Love-Based Goals, and what that book is about is really I define love-based. I know love-based goals. Love-based goals is actually I define those as messages from your soul. So basically, your soul wants you to evolve into the person you're meaning to be, and you're not doing it. So the goal is the reward you get for evolving as a person. So if you know you need to be writing this and you're not writing this, then I'm guessing, and there's no like, I hate writing, none of that stuff. Like I hate writing. I've got like 5 million other things to do, things that where you could easily say, okay, well, maybe you just need to hire it out, because that's a perfectly legitimate answer especially for entrepreneurs who have other things to do. And if that's not the right answer, then chances are it's something that you need to evolve into the person that will be writing. So some things that might be going on is perhaps you have lived in this gray space for so long that you have now defined yourself as your core identity as somebody who is always going to be writing something but never is writing something. So at that point, you may want to take some time to do some to really feel, and like because what's going to happen is when you sit down to write, these feelings are going to come out, because you're changing your identity, because now you're stepping from a person who is going to write at some unknown time in the future to somebody who is writing. So your subconscious is going to fight that, and the way the subconscious fights that, in a lot of times, not always, is you have emotions come out. So you can start feeling those emotions, and as you feel those emotions, you're going to be able to keep taking action. So taking action and writing as you move through those emotions.
Okay, so that sounds like, and I think there are some other, quizzes online to help you figure out what's going on. We have a quiz. You can go to takethisquiznow.com, and this is about to find out how aligned you are with your purpose. You give your email address. You take the quiz. It's real fun and simple. Give your email address to get the results. We'll send you to several pages of useful stuff to address some of this, whether this is your purpose, in this case, to be writing the book and everything. Eventually, you'll get a chance to do a free call with one of our people. But the main thing is, this is one of the things. Look for tests, look for quizzes, look for things to help you determine just as Michelle is saying, is this something I'm supposed to be doing? What are the blocks? Because once you can identify the blocks, or you can identify where you need to grow, then you have action steps that you can take. So
Yes.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then once you've decided if this is what you're meant to be, and you're ready to step into to somebody who is presently writing, and not somebody who is going to be writing whatever it is, then the next step is, okay, how do you get started? Like, we have you're going to have a lot of emotion issues. So that's one thing. And that's long, that's a much deep, like hours and hours. But a very short answer to get you going is to just work on it for 15 minutes a day. So just set your timer. I suggest first thing in the morning. So if you have like some sort of morning routine, you meditate, whatever you do, I would advise you to do it before you check email, because email can send you down a rabbit hole. And if you can't do that, it could be 15 minutes over your lunch hour, 15 minutes right after work, or 15 minutes before you go to bed. So it's got to be, but the thing is the problem is, of course, the later in the day it is, the more excuses can pile up for skipping. So that's why first thing in the morning tends to be a little better. So 15 minutes, that's it. So just work on whatever project is for 15 minutes. And when I say work on it, I don't mean having to write the full 15 minutes. In fact, you don't have to write it all. You just have to open up the document and just kind of start typing, start playing around with it, maybe read what you did yesterday, maybe research something. The idea is to just every single day take a tiny action towards it, and there should be no judgment as to how small or how imperfect that action is. It doesn't matter if what you write today you delete tomorrow. That doesn't matter. The point is you're taking action and you're moving forward, because that's what's going to break this. That's what's going to transform you.
You know that I thank you for that, and I think that's a brilliant idea, and I love the whole point about no judgment and everything. I think that process is excellent. I don't know if you know, there's a quote from Oscar Wilde who said this regarding a poem that he was writing. He said, I spent the entire morning putting in a comma. In the afternoon, I took it out again," and that's part of the process of refining the writing. And
Yes.
Personally, I know a lot of people find it easier to edit something rather than start from scratch. So I love this idea of just put something down and then go back. And even if you don't use any of the words, it gives you something to begin with. So this is for people who now, yes, I've gone through everything. I know I'm supposed to write. I know this is what I'm supposed to write. I'm going to start with 15 minutes a day. What next?
Well, so part of it is you want to, when I say 15 minutes a day, I do want to say do it every day, because part of what you're doing is you're living in the world of your idea. You're living in the world of your story. You're living in the world of every piece of writing, including copywriting, like a long sales letter, because that's what, one of the things I did with the copywriting. So like a piece of sales copy. Everything has its own world. So you want to be living in that world every single day. So that's why the 15 minutes a day can help really well. Now, if you're just writing like to your list once a week, you probably don't need 15 minutes every single day. But you may still want to block that out and do some other kinds of writing for your business, like writing a blog post or writing some information or whatever, just so you can kind of keep that momentum going, generating the writing. So that's that's kind of like how I would say to get started, is to just do that without any judgment. And then like I said, if you can't get started, like if you're doing the work, you're committed to going, you sit down in front of the blank screen, nothing's coming out. You can sit there and just stare at the blank screen for 15 minutes, or you can just start typing, even if it's like, I don't know what to write, for 15 minutes. Because the thing is something happens in our brain after we've been doing an activity for 10 to 12 minutes. And what happens is something flips and you keep doing it. So this is why this also can work for exercising, by the way. This is a bonus tip. So if you are struggling to exercise, set a timer and say you're going to only walk for 15 minutes. And then if you don't want to walk anymore, then you stop. And stop. So that's the other thing too. If you don't want to work right, if you don't want to walk anymore, then stop. But chances are, more times than not, once you pass that 10 to 12 minute mark, you're not going to mind keeping going. And that's what happens with the writing too. So if you write, I don't have anything to say, if you just keep writing that over and over again, eventually you'll have a breakthrough. And eventually you will start writing something, and then it's going to go beyond the 10 to 12 minutes a day. And then you're going to finally start to get into the habit of this.
Yeah, there's 2 points about this that I find are interesting. And one is, and this went way back when I was in college, they said, write a paper on, I don't remember what it was. And I started writing, and I wrote and I thought I had an idea of what it might be. And I got about 3.5 pages in, and then and I'm handwriting this back then. So this is before the invention of the typewriter or even the fire or the wheel. But anyway, it wasn't quite that long ago. But about 3.5 pages in, suddenly I totally got what it was. I threw those 3.5 pages out, but the rest of it
Yeah.
just came out so fast and so clear and so quickly. So I love this idea of just, this is one of the pre-writing techniques that I was taught, is just write your name over and over again. I have nothing to say for whatever it is,
Yeah.
but just start writing. And this is the first time I heard about the 10 to 12 minutes thing. But when I was in sales years ago, I had to call and set up appointments with people, which, like most people do, cold calling or even calling somebody who's requesting information is not something that gets your juices flowing. And what my boss said to me back then, and this was in the late 70s, early 80s or something, was he said, schedule a time every week to do it, again, like you're talking about. And he said, and then whether you feel like it or not, he said, don't determine whether you feel like it or not till you've made at least 5 calls, and then decide whether you want to do it or not. And he said the same thing that you said, Michelle, which is, if you want to stop, stop. And I never stopped. Every single time that
Yes.
I had done 5, I was like, I can do it. And I always went for the full 2 hours or whatever it was. Or maybe I stopped at 1 hour and 15 minutes or
Right.
something. But the point is that, because at the time I lived with an ocean view on Laguna Beach, so it's around noon, 11:30. That's enough work. You have to go play. So it was on a Saturday, So, but I love both. I love this idea that just do it for a few minutes without judgment, and then after 15 minutes, you can make a call. I do want to say something. What is your feeling about somebody who says, okay, I'll do it for 15 minutes, and then they do it for 15 minutes 2 or 3 times, and then they say, wow, I'm really going, and they'll go for 2 or 3 hours, and then they don't want to do it after that because it's not 15 minutes. They've just kind of blown out everything. It's like, my roommate who bought a gym membership and went the first day and really killed himself and worked for hours and then never went back because it was.
Yeah, so you do have to be, that's true. Your brain can get sore. So if you do go, well, in fact, I did actually, there's somebody I was working with and I stopped them. So I would say, you let yourself recover if that's the case, if you went too far and you really just don't feel right. And then try to, but then you need to get back on the horse. So then you know what happened. I mean, because you can work it, some of the people that are the most productive tend to do things they stop after 50 minutes. I think Brendan Bouchard talks about that. Like he does every day, he does 3 or 4 50-minute power sessions with a 10-minute break in between. And maybe there's a longer break between session 2 and 3. I don't know. But so I would say you probably, regardless, it might not be a bad idea to stop and at least walk around after 50 minutes. So there's people I know who power through quite a bit of writing, and they'll do 50 minutes. They'll take a 10-minute break, and then they'll go back and do another 50 minutes, and then they're done for the day. So if you do blow through the 15 minutes, so you may want to have two timers, one at 15 minutes and one at 50. And if you blow through the 15 minutes, great. But then stop at 50 because your brain does, to work at that high level, your brain is a muscle and your brain does need a break.
Cool. What else do you want to share with us? I know you have something you want to give everybody, the moon or a winning lottery ticket. What is it that you want to give them?
So I do have a free gift. It's the Writer's Toolkit. It's kind of it will be a collection of writing tools. Right now there's one in there, but when you sign up, you'll be getting notified when I add more to it. It's the Writer's Toolkit, and it's at lovebasedbiz.com. And I'm going to be starting.
I'm sorry, say that again. You said it way too quick.
Oh, lovebasedbiz.com, the Writer's Toolkit. So, and I will have a podcast, the Write Inspiration as well. That's going to talk more about writing as part of it. But yes, the Writer's Toolkit at lovebasedbiz.com.
And the links will be in the show notes as always. What else, you might have something else to say. I'm really curious about the $50 million worth of products that you sold. I don't, it's a little bit divergent from what we're talking about, but I'm massively curious about it. Was that you just took any client who could afford you and that's what came out? Or did you hand pick products that you thought this will generate huge amount? I mean, tell me a little bit about that process.
So it was a little bit of both. So when first of all, that was over it was over about a decade. So it wasn't, it wasn't just like a couple of clients. So, and some clients were, when I first started, it was taking, whoever, and I did get lucky for some of those. And then but then there was also not so lucky. And so I over time, I learned you do learn when you've been doing this for a while, the people who are most likely that it's going to be, you can see the people who are the most successful and are going to do it, and versus ones who you may be able to still help, but maybe they're not going to be as successful than ones that you probably just, it just doesn't end up not really working out, which is fine for everybody. So you do have a sixth sense on some of that. Yes.
So that's cool. I know you have to leave. I want to give a real quick summary. The first thing about writer's block is to determine whether or not you should be a writer. And we talked about, people could go back and listen to that part. We talked about some ways that you can determine that. And correct me and jump in at any point. The second thing is, once you know you should be a writer, but it's not happening for you, the big exercise we're suggesting to get started is just get started. And what that means is write for 15 minutes a day, or spend that 15 minutes a day every day. That's 7 days a week or 5 days a week?
Yeah, if you can do 7 days a week, that's the best, yes.
And you want to be focusing on the project in whatever way it is, whether it's doing research, whether it's actually writing, whether it's rereading what you've written, maybe it's making an outline or just clearing your head about it, but you stay focused for 15 minutes. Is there anything else you would, and the Writer's Toolkit at lovebasedbiz.com is an excellent resource to help go further with this. Anything else you want to add?
It's just, be patient with yourself, because, if you're trying to change and become somebody else, there's a lot of emotions that's going to come up, and there's a lot of things that's going to feel like they're going to derail you. And so the best thing you can do is decide you're changing this, you're going to be somebody else, and you may have to decide every single day, and be committed to yourself, and then keep that commitment no matter how it looks, and try to release the judgment for how it looks. So what I mean by that is, when you show up and write, even if what you end up writing is horrible and you edit and you delete it all the next day, it doesn't matter, you still showed up and write. So release the judgment of how it externally looks. Like, if you somehow think you should be able to sit down and write, and you write like 2,000 words and it's perfect, and you're just starting out, that's probably not realistic. So release those expectations of what it's looking like, and just be committed to the practice of showing up and doing it.
Yeah, that was release the expectations. We might have lost a word there. Release the expectations. Yeah. Michele, thank you so much for being here. A quick shout out: if you're not using it, go to peaceandharmonydownload.com and start taking advantage of that program. And Michele, I know you have to run. Thank you so much for being here. You have a great everything. This has been very useful and practical, and I learned stuff. So well done, you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed being here.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to another helpful, fun, and life-changing episode of Here We Come to Save the Day with David Adelson. To access the show notes and additional resources, go to herewecometosavetheday.com. If you've enjoyed the show and find it helpful and fun, please leave us a review and share with a friend. Tell us issues troubling you or questions you have. We're here to help you. That's what Here We Come to Save the Day is all about. Till next time.